We got a special treat here at ECU today. We actually pulled in another coach, Coach Palumbo, the recruiting coordinator here.
Appreciate you having me, Josh.
Yeah, man, no, it's great. First recruiting coordinator we've got on the tour so far.
Nice.
So,
appreciate that.
Yeah, it's big time. Nobody better here. Let's jump right into it. Recruiting is not random, and I think that's one of the most important things that young guys need to know. When you go to a game, you're not there just looking at everybody and anything. You're there for a reason.
Right.
So, what is it that catches your eye that, what's the process to get you from identifying a player to saying, I'm going to go to this game and watch this kid play?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really, and that's something I learned as a coach pretty quickly, it's all about relationships. All about the relationships of the people that you know and the coaches, high school coaches. Sometimes it could be a player of yours. Says, hey, listen, here's a guy that's at my high school, friends of the family, great player. So you really never know what kind of ties are going to pop up and where you're going to get recommendations from certain people, and then you just start to kind of do your homework.
So I just wanted to make sure I'm hearing you correctly. Most of the guys, the names that you come up with, the names that you follow up on, they come through connections that you've already made, guys that you trust out there in the field, because you can't possibly know every kid out there. Is that
no
how it
question?
works?
I mean, I think I know I rely a lot on that, and as you get a chance to mature as a coach and someone that's out on the road recruiting, you continue to develop those relationships and continue to meet people and you figure out, okay, hey, listen, if this coach is telling me this kid's a player, then he's a player, and you get a feel for those things as you develop those relationships. And look, there's some that say, hey, listen, he's a player, and you don't necessarily have that deep relationship with them, and so, hey, I want to get out and go see for myself and get out and understand those things. So it's all different based upon the relationships, but I would say the majority of the time that's where the recommendations are coming from. Yes, you get some emails, you get a chance to see a kid, and hey, listen, yeah, he looks like he's got some ability. Let's reach out to the high school coach. Let's reach out to the travel coach and start to compile the information that way before you hop in your car and get out there and go see.
How much of it is random? So you're going, let's say you're coming out to see me pitch, right? And I'm out there throwing 75, really impressing you, right? And some guy hits a home run off me that you've never known the name, you've never seen the kid, you know nothing about him. What are you going to do with that kid that just hit a home run? Anything?
Absolutely. I mean, it starts with game ends and going to the other dugout, and you're going to talk with the coach and get a feel for, hey, listen, is that his everyday type thing? Is that a 1 in a million type situation? But again, you just get to do your homework and you get a chance to get a feel for hey, what does coach think about him? And as he hits that home run, you're starting to watch him maybe a little closer. As right. the day's going on, and you're seeing how he interacts with his teammates and you're seeing how he is defensively or what have you. But you do, it catches your attention. How many of the situations end up being a random situation where the kid ends up going to your program? Certainly not the majority. I'd say it's a minority of the situations, but it does happen, and that's the beauty of this game.
I had a coach one time go to a game, see a shortstop. The shortstop, they played a half an inning, right? It got rained down the top of the first. He goes, and afterwards he goes, I like him. I go, how is that possible? He said, I watched him take ground balls in between innings. He obviously knows what he's doing. He's doing this, doing that. Like, what are some of those things that you're watching?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be, you can show up to a game and go to watch a position player and he walks 4 times and you can, not either walk out there and say, hey, I didn't get a chance to see what I wanted to see, or, yes, he may have walked 4 times, but I saw his BP in the cages, I saw the hand speed, I saw him square up, 12 out of 12 in his round of batting practice, and I saw how he went and stretched, how he went about his business, and he seemed to have intent between throwing the baseball to his target, working his footwork as he's warming up, and he's ready to play, he's interacting with his teammates. When he does walk, he's down there, he's trying to figure out, hey, well, now how for my team can I steal second base and get into scoring position? And you mentioned it, kind of how they go about getting on and off the field, and for an infielder, man, you can go watch him 3 times, he may never get a ground ball in the game, if you're watching him an entire weekend. So watching his pace and what he does in between innings, getting himself ready to go, they may be the only ground balls that you see, and I can identify pretty quickly in between innings, is he a guy that's going to be pretty true with his arm and hit his target consistently, or is he spraying balls in between innings because he's not really intentful about what he's doing? So either he's not intentful or he's not accurate. Either one's not a great showing me it's going to be a great fit in the infield. So there's so many things that you can key in on and take in as a coach.
There's a growing trend of guys sitting out their high school season in favor of either training or some sort of academy baseball nowadays.
Right.
Does that affect the way that you evaluate that player, or maybe how you see him fitting into your program?
Yeah, I don't know if it completely alters how you evaluate it. I'm a big fan of high school baseball. I think it does bring a competitive nature that maybe academy or travel baseball doesn't necessarily at times. And I think there's a piece of that I do want the players that come into East Carolina to have. That said, there are fantastic coaches that are coaching at these academies. There's fantastic coaches that are coaching in travel baseball. So it's not a end all be all either way. It's just kind of a piece of the equation that you want to evaluate and see, maybe what is the reason, because I think it's different for every individual, why they may see that this is a better fit for me specifically. And some as a coach, you may look up and say, hey, listen, I get where you're coming from. It's not one way or the other for me. It's more about, and as you said, it has become more popular. It has come up with, we've had players that have decided to do it once in their high school career, some that went right into it. So you can see it starting to happening, and I think as college coaches, we're also trying to figure out, hey, listen, where's this trend going to go?
Bunting, travel baseball. What are your thoughts?
Bunting in travel baseball.
Bunting on the summer circuit. When you're in Atlanta to watch your guy and coach hasn't put down a bunt.
Well, I can tell you.
Be honest.
Believe me. So I coach the bunting here. And I spend about I'd say about 45 minutes in early work with just bunters. And I can tell you, we also led the country in sack bunts last year. So for me, having the opportunity to see them play the game and the ability to do that is a tool for me that is very, very, it's going to help us tremendously here. So seeing their ability to do that, it's kind of like hitting the ball out of the yard. If I don't see that you can do that, then it's hard for me to evaluate it. So now I'm bringing in a player. Obviously, it's different players, different situations. But if you're in our game, if you're at our place, if you're if you're a rabbit, and you can run, and we want you to be at the top of the lineup and set the tone and be able to handle the bat. Having that skill set is huge for me, because if you're a runner and you can't do that, man, you better be able to steal a lot of bases.
So you like to see the phases of the game play out?
I like to see the game of baseball being played, and that's a piece of it for me that is important.
Some coaches have told me that they're also evaluating the adults around the player.
Sure.
Is that true for you? And what are some things that you've seen, whether positive or negative, that kind of affect the way you go about recruiting a player?
Yeah, I 100%. And that's, we talked about fit earlier, and it's a two-way street. And I'm a big believer that in the recruiting process, getting a chance to speak with the parents fairly routinely, it's going to give me a great gauge on whether or not, hey, listen, this is a family and a player that I think is going to be the right fit for East Carolina. But it's also on their end. They get a chance to know us. They get a chance to know who we are as people and who we are as a coaching staff. And when you're interacting with the families, you get a pretty good sense pretty quickly of, hey, listen, is this the type, not good or bad, just is this the right type of situation, that they're going to come into in our program. And you talk with them on the phone. You also get a chance to watch them on the road and how they're watching their son, and how, when there's adversity, how they handle that in the stands, how they might interact with other parents, all of those things. Once you're recruiting a player, and you get to know the families, you kind of watch those interactions.
Have you had experiences where you saw whether parents or coaches act a certain way where you're just like, this is not going to be a situation for us?
Absolutely. I mean, you see
that's not maybe necessarily the fault of the player.
It's not, and that's the part where you try to kind of read between the lines a little bit, because there are times where we've had a player and I really thoroughly enjoyed talking to him on the phone, and I may think, hey, he's very mature, right. But then you may see some things, from the parents that maybe you wouldn't necessarily like to be a part of your program. And
last question. What's one thing you think high school players or high school families don't understand about your job as a recruiting coordinator? Or you would like them to understand?
Here's what I would say. The biggest piece of the puzzle is, the more they can take ownership in their process, the better. I think sometimes, they may not understand that there's a lot of great players out there,
Right.
you know, and we're pulled in a lot of different directions. And I think the one piece that they often misunderstand is that we don't just recruit, that we also coach the team, and our players here, you know, are here at practice sometimes, and we're on the road watching, you know, their sons play, and they also need to understand that, hey, listen, if this does work out, your son may be the one that I'm having to not develop as much as maybe I'd like to on a daily basis, because I also have to be on the road recruiting. So there's a balance that we go through, and I think most families do understand that, but I think that's a piece of the puzzle. I get it often. My two favorite things are, you're a baseball coach. Would he show up at the field at 3 o'clock and show up for practice? Yeah, how's that? You know, and then others that think we, you know, in my role, just recruit and don't coach the game. So, you know, look, we got 35 players and, you know, four essentially 3 full-time coaches and a volunteer that is full-time. So we're trying to develop relationships, develop players, be around these guys as much as we possibly can to help them grow into people, you know, individuals that are ready to be successful in the real world, while traveling all over the country and trying to find players that can help us win a national championship and running transcripts and, you know, all the things that go into it.
So you got a lot more going on.
Look, we all do. If you're in the sport, and you know that when you sign up for it. But, you know, when families understand that, hey, listen, you know, there's a lot that goes into it, and you know, we're pulled in a lot of different directions. So if we're not able to, you know, spend as much time, it's not because we don't want to. It's just part of the equation.
Great stuff.
Yeah,
Thanks
good.
for having us, Coach.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys coming out.